Hello, good afternoon. My name is Jooyoung. I'm the director of Civic Economy Center at the Hankyoreh Economy and Social Research Institute. Let's watch a video first.
I'm very pleased to say hello to my friends in Korea, and I hope you're going to see a new film, which is called Sorry We Missed You. My name's Ken Loach, and I've worked with writer Paul Laverty, producer Rebecca O'Brien, on the film I, Daniel Blake. This film is about a family where the father is working as a driver for a delivery company and the mother is a care worker. What's remarkable about their jobs is that they are insecure workers. We call it the gig economy, and I think it is worldwide, where workers no longer have set contracts of a certain number of hours for a certain wage, but where they can be told at the last minute they're working and whether they will get paid or not. And this is very hard, as we all know, for people to bring up their families and to plan their lives. So I hope the film connects with audiences in Korea. Good wishes to all our friends in Korea.
This decides who lives and who dies, because I keep this happy.
Let's go!
Rosie.
Fucking hell.
Otherwise, you're just going to end up like... Well, I don't know.
You know, I never thought it'd be this difficult, Abby.
I'm telling you now, how'd you get away with this? Call my family.
Thanks for the great day.
Movie. You may have seen the movie. So I think the movie deals with a worldwide issue. But what I want to focus on regarding the movie is the fact that it's about the gig economy, but it's also talking about precarious labor as a whole. The freelancers and the platform workers are also both dealt with in the movie. So you have the workers under disguise employment relations, you have all the kinds of contract workers and all the kind of precarious workers. You have all sorts of precarious workers nowadays. So I think the movie talks about how we're going to overcome these issues. And actually, just a while ago, there was an association that was launched in Korea that encompasses the platform workers and also freelancers. So there's still only a minority number of members who have been organized into this association, but nonetheless it's the only association that has been formed by the workers themselves that is going to voice out the interests of the workers. So I think it's quite special. So as you can see on the slide, you can see that there's a higher level of surveillance. There's very much lack of solidarity. The workers feel very lonely. They don't have a sense of belonging, and that leads to alienation and a depression. And so it's becoming a society-wide problem. And as you had seen in the preview trailer, there is a machine that surveys the workers. So it's not an exaggeration to say that there's an algorithm that monitors and surveys the workers. So there's a person, it's not just the person who's actually managing the workers or maintaining surveillance of the workers. It's actually a machine, an algorithm. And so basically there are many workplaces where people say that there is no middle manager, but in fact it's now the algorithm of the machines who are acting as a middle manager in the different workplaces. So anyway, you have many platform businesses and there are many workers suffering under the platform businesses. But let's look a little bit more into the essence of the platform business. And I think we need, first of all, to redefine the various concepts. In the beginning, the platforms were quite simple. So I live in Cheongna in Incheon, and if I want to move to Kuro in Seoul, so if it was in the 60s and the 70s, I would go to the real estate agency in the Kuro area and ask them if there's a house that matches the finances and the conditions of my family, etc. And the real estate agent would listen to my story, and he or she would say, "Follow me," and then the real estate agent would show me to different houses. And many people living in Kuro would also have gone to the real estate agent and to say that they want to rent out their houses or sell their houses. And so the real estate agent at that time was a physical form of a platform, because it was a platform that connected different goods. It's a platform that connected different people, the supply side and the demand side. And so platform is a platform, right? You had the platforms on a railway station, and you have a platform on this stage. But now in this hyper-connected society and the fourth industrial revolution, those so-called platforms have now become something completely new. It has become digitalized, and so now the platforms have become businesses. So what do platform businesses refer to? So they have a dualist kind of market. So they have the platform, and then there is also the people who use the platforms, and then they are the clients who want services provided by the platforms. So the platforms just set the rules, and each side, the supply side and the demand side, would actually benefit from one another. So I'm not exactly, I don't quite remember the commission of Airbnb, but I think it's 15% on each side. So people may think it's a very good business model. Yes, from a business perspective, yes, it's a good model, but the problem is that these kind of businesses have been packaged through the Silicon Valley as a shared economy. So you have a unused couch, you have an unused bedroom in your house, and you want to share it with others. And the added value is immense. So the added value is then helping many people to earn a profit from all this, and it's been packaged as a shared economy, and the shared economy is receiving a lot of investments from various counterparts. So it may seem cooperative and it may seem shared indeed, and so that's how the platform businesses all started. They were packaged as something that's shared. It was packaged in a good way. It was eco-friendly. It's connecting people to people. So the platform businesses were deemed to be very good in the beginning. But this is actually different from the actual shared economy in the strict sense of the word. There's a term in Chinese, 共享. So it's not just about shared, it's actually about renting something out, because it's not about joint ownership. And so when we're talking about social economy, I think we have to look at the platform businesses in two ways. On the first angle is that the platform businesses are treating workers very badly, and how are we going to use the social economy for those workers? The second perspective is that how are the platform businesses going to be transformed so that they fit the original aim of contributing to the shared economy? But majority of the national policies of many governments focus on how to protect the workers working in the platform businesses. My laser point doesn't work, so I'll just explain it. So the government-led solutions is basically amending the labor laws. For example, it's extending the workers' compensation insurance, etc. So these are the government-led solutions. So for example, some of the workers in disguised employment relations would be recognized with worker status. And so a lot of the artists also have been recognized as workers thanks to these kind of government policies. The second way is the market-led solutions. Actually, the market-led solutions are not necessarily all that bad. because it's all about perfect competition. So the market-led solution promotes perfect competition so that the ultimate consumer will be able to receive the best solution and best service from those companies who are able to survive the competition. But then there is what's called the networking effect. And this is very closely related to the amount of capital. So if you have money, then you are able to increase your influence over the network, and then monopoly or oligopoly follows. And so the industrial structure is changed in a certain way to prevent additional competition. So direct employment doesn't work under this kind of structure. And the workers, in many cases, don't want direct employment. In fact, 배달의 민족 in Korea, which is a delivery app, actually tried to employ the workers, but the workers felt that the full-time employment was not for them, so they rejected that kind of model. So anyway, what are we going to do? So direct employment is impossible, and also social security is somewhat limited. Now, what's the third way? The third way is a community-led solution. So this is basically the commons, the communities managing and operating these types of platforms. That could be one solution. So this is basically about joint ownership and sharing the profits that come from the joint ownership. But that road is not very easy because there's just not enough funding. And if you think about the delivery apps, it's really difficult to overcome the entrenched players in the market. And so these are some of the attempts that are being implemented in the social economy. So domestic workers, you have the on-demand drivers, the IT freelancers, and also the cultural artists. And the reason why the social economic solutions or the community-led solutions are possible in these four groups of workers is because these four groups have not generated enough profit for the capitalists to focus on. So there's a minimal amount of commissions, and the social security cannot be provided entirely by the government. So a lot of the groups that have formed, or co-ops that have been formed for these workers, are acting as a delivery path for various social security policies. And so this will be it for my presentation, and I'll try to elaborate during the Q&A session. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Simon Borkin. I'm a freelance director of my own cooperative development business, Commonly, and I'm also an associate of Cooperatives UK, which is the trade body for the cooperative movement here in the United Kingdom. I'm delighted to be able to be part of the Self Forum 2020 to talk about my work exploring platform cooperatives of capital. I'll be presenting today on funding models for technology cooperatives to start and grow in a post-COVID economy, drawing on the research I did with NESTA, the National Endowment for Science, Technology and the Arts, last year, exploring the capital conundrum for platform co-ops, as well as my work exploring the community shares model, which has helped community enterprises start and grow across the United Kingdom. So firstly, I'm going to talk about the platform co-op work, and I'm going to just define what we mean when we talk about platform co-ops. The definition we used for the Nesta report was that a platform co-op is a digital platform that is designed to provide a service or sell a product that is collectively owned and governed by the people who depend on and participate in it. The platform co-op movement was inspired by growing trends within our modern digital economy. Specifically, we're aware that a growing number of people are organising their work and resources through digital platforms. These platforms offer boundless flexibility and independence. However, what we realise is that they are increasingly exploitative and monopolistic, owned largely by a small number of big tech corporations, which themselves have introduced a precarious gig economy, which has exacerbated systemic inequalities and lead to other social issues such as data surveillance and misuse of personal data. The platform co-op movement was a response to this environment in which a group of researchers and academics identified a potential route to a fairer, more inclusive outcome that would generate tangible advantages for workers and consumers alike. Given the current COVID-19 pandemic, the role of platform co-ops in a post-COVID economy is even more important. What we know is that there's been an ever-increasing reliance on big tech during the pandemic. From Zoom to Amazon, more of our lives have shifted online. As a result, tech giants are increasing their power, but in a way they're reducing their accountability. This is likely to continue as we navigate a post-COVID economy. Platform cooperatives, by their very nature, can help disperse power and give greater accountability by changing how the technology we use every day is owned and run. Now, I just want to give a few examples of platform co-ops that are operating today in our economy. The first is Stocks United, which provides curated stock photography and video footage with almost 1,000 photographer member owners across 63 countries. Another emerging platform co-op is Equal Care Co-op. They're building a new co-owned social care platform that puts caregivers and receivers in charge. By incorporating as a multi-stakeholder cooperative, their digital product and accompanying service is owned by and accountable to the communities using and sustaining it. Up&Go is a platform that offers on-demand cleaning services at guaranteed fair wages and was launched by 4 worker cooperatives based in New York City. The worker-owned cleaning business, which are all majority women-owned, earn 95% of the cost of every Up&Go cleaning job. The remaining 5% supports the cost to maintain the platform. Finally, Resonance is a stream-to-own music platform harnessing blockchain technology. It's a multi-stakeholder cooperative giving democratic control to artists, listeners and workers. Through its model, it pays up to 2.5 times more revenue to artists than other streaming services. So these are an example of some platform co-ops that are up and running today. The research that we did with Nesta was trying to understand how these platform co-ops fit within an overall typology. What we recognised is that there were 2 main drivers. First of all is the distribution of membership. All platform co-ops will have open and democratic membership, but will vary in regard to how distributed this membership base is across the various stakeholders which interact with the business. A good example is Up&Go is very much a consortium or worker platform cooperative that is driven by the cleaners that run the organisation, whereas Resonate is a multi-stakeholder co-op distributes its membership across the various stakeholders that come together through the platform, the listeners, the artists, the developers. The other characteristic that we identified was labour intensity. This is about the proportion of labour underpins their trading activities. While platform cooperatives span numerous business models, there is a pervasive feature regarding their relationship to labour. As businesses, there is always some labour dimension to the co-op, but this will vary in terms of how intensive it is to the business model. Again, taking examples in the table, Up&Go's trading is likely to be heavily dependent on labour, i.e. workers providing cleaning services, while My Data, as a data platform, doesn't appear to be concerned with labour at all, but rather aggregating consumer medical data. Despite these characteristics, what we did realise was a number of advantages that the platform cooperative model could provide and become increasingly important as we navigate a post-COVID economy. The first cooperative advantage is placing the creators in control. What we realise is that developing platform cooperatives where the creators of value have more control over how revenues are generated and distributed could in itself provide a more sustainable business model when balanced with less extractive relationship with external investors. This is exactly what Resonate is trying to do with its artist-owned streaming service, which is operating in light of other major incumbents like Spotify or Apple Music. Another key area of competitive advantage is recognising that platform cooperatives often operate with strong relational models. Specifically, by bringing all the various stakeholders that characterise the marketplace into the governance of a business, a platform cooperative can act as the necessary commitment mechanism to ensure all parties have an equal stake in how these services can be well run and provide real value. Finally, we should see platform cooperatives as a social movement, as they offer both a means of control for workers and producers and a means of organising labour outside of the traditional trade union structures. There's a growing appetite across all areas of the economy for higher ethical practices and standards of production, and this could provide a strong consumer driver for platform co-ops in a post-COVID world where people are more likely to be aware of the conditions and circumstances in which workers operate. Now, what the research flagged was a number of challenges that face platform co-ops. First of all, platform cooperatives usually lack a geographically rooted community and can have divergent stakeholder interests which create organisational problems. Also, platform cooperatives may not want to adopt some of the technologies that have become synonymous with big tech and surveillance capitalism, such as data analytics and artificial intelligence. Thirdly, platform cooperatives are unlikely to be able to follow the established growth strategies of incumbents, and so will find it difficult to build the natural network effects that fuel market penetration and consolidation, which is so characteristic of big tech companies in the current economy. Finally, platform co-ops lack a pure profit-driven business model, which means platform cooperatives struggle to access capital to grow, as financing in the startup sector is predicated largely on venture capital, which generally requires investor control and the potential for large future returns, which is more limited in the cooperative model. Given these issues, my research with Nesta tried to identify a new type of social investment and opportunity, which meets the specific scaling needs of platform co-ops. What we recognised was that there needed to be institutional seed funding, which could help platform co-ops navigate through the well-considered valley of death of pre-trading, to the point where they are revenue generating and start to raise investment from their users through public offers of mutual shares. This public offer of mutual shares draws on the work that we have undertaken in the UK around community share offers, which I'll explain later, which have been a very successful model for the community enterprise sector in the United Kingdom. Essentially, this figure presents a theoretical startup and finance cycle for platform co-ops, using a commonly used diagram to show the typical venture capital-backed financing model. It's been adapted to provide the equivalent funding proposition for platform co-ops, in which the institutional investment fund we identify, which we'll call the Platform Co-op Fund, would provide the early stage seed capital equivalent to angel investment secured by traditional tech startups. Following this institutional funding, we believe that as these platform co-ops grow, they'll be able to undertake open offers to their community members to raise subsequent capital. This would be more akin to an initial public offering that we see within the traditional technology sector. So I'm just going to talk about community shares, which is the basis in which we've designed this social investment model that we hope would eliminate the capital conundrum faced by today's platform co-ops. So community shares is a flexible and effective way to raise finance, which benefits business, investors and the wider community. It's an innovative, accessible investment model, and it's become popular in the last 10 years as a way for community businesses to raise finance. It is unique to cooperative and community benefit societies, which are businesses owned and run by local communities across the UK. Overall, almost 500 enterprises have raised over 100 million in community shares from over 100,000 people to enable their ventures to start and grow. And 92% of those societies that use this form of funding are still trading today. And examples of these businesses that use community shares span from heritage, community energy, food and farming, and arts and crafts and creative industries. So when we talk about community shares, we're actually referring to a legislative model called withdrawable share capital. This is a unique form of share capital for cooperative and community benefit societies. Key to community shares is that this type of share capital can't be sold or transferred to third parties. It ensures no speculation or capital gain on the shares. Instead, the shares can be withdrawn from the society subject to terms and conditions. Another important principle is that it's one member, one vote, regardless of the amount of share capital held. This ensures democratic control of the organisation by the members. Practically, these type of share offers are exempt from formal financial regulation in the United Kingdom. This means that community share offers are an affordable, practical solution for societies to raise capital from their community. However, the community and the members that do invest can be compensated through an interest payment, but this interest payment is predicated on limited return. This ensures investors are compensated, but focuses on long-term community benefits and not private gain. Based on these characteristics, we find that community shares are a really important part of financing for social enterprises and community businesses in the UK. This is because it provides long-term risk capital to help businesses start and grow. We also find that community share offers lever further funding based on community members committing first. The fact that it's democratic and one member, one vote, regardless of the amount of share capital held, gives all members a meaningful involvement in the running of the society. Finally, it provides effective business sustainability, as community shelters effectively bake in the customer base and promote member involvement in the operation of the society, which underpins their business models. Again, if we think about community shares in light of the COVID-19 emergency, we know that COVID-19 has had a massive impact on all businesses, and that's regardless of age, scale, sector or type. There has been numerous government measures in the UK to try and support businesses, and a lot of this government support has been available to cooperatives along with other types of businesses. However, community shares give community businesses additional solvency compared with other businesses that are more reliant on debt finance. Importantly, members have a vested interest in the purpose of their societies and will support measures to protect its employees, volunteers, assets and share capital. Community shares creates a buffer of mission-aligned patient capital for a cooperative, offering additional protection from the threat of insolvency faced by community businesses without share capital. This is because share capital is fully at risk. Money owed to other creditors must be paid before the society consider the payment of interest or allow for share withdrawal. This means that cooperatives in the UK that use community shares have a warning period while losses accumulate, and this gives them time to take action, return to profitability and prevent insolvency. Now, if we just think about the average amount that's raised, the number of investors for community shelters in the UK, we find that on average, just short of £200,000 is raised within community shelters. And generally, a community shelter will attract around 250 investors. So this equates to an average investment of £745. We've seen a growing number of community members invest in community shares to the point where we now have over 500 organisations and over 100,000 people investing in community shares. However, an important part of the work we've done is to generate this institutional funding opportunity that can run alongside community shares. Specifically, we developed a programme called the Community Shares Booster Programme. This has been managed by Cooperatives UK and provides an investment vehicle for institutional investment into cooperative and community benefit societies via community shares. Since 2017, the programme has invested over 2 million of share capital in 32 organisations, which in turn has leveraged over 5.2 million of community investment. This programme is currently funded by a number of funders in the UK, namely Power to Change and the Architectural Heritage Fund, and as a result, we're making investments in line with the criteria of funders. However, importantly, these investments are invested on the same terms as the community investors. So invest alongside the community and takes a shared level of risk and benefit from the investment rather than displacing or disadvantaging the community investors. So when we talk about the recommendations for growing the platform co-ops space, we're very much drawing on the effectiveness and learning and success that we've seen in the community shares world. Specifically, we've been calling for the establishment of a platform co-op fund, which would be similar to the Community Shares Booster Programme, in that it would offer this initial patient seed funding informed by the Community Shares model. However, alongside a dedicated funding model, we realise that there still needs to be more focus on and support to the growth of the sector at large. We think this would be best delivered through the development of an accelerator model for tailored support and advice to emergency platform co-ops, which would accompany any funding offer. We also want to raise awareness of platform co-ops as an alternative model to big tech, and we continue to run a dedicated campaign to raise this awareness. We also are keen to explore other capital models which would allow mission-oriented, purpose-driven tech businesses to consider a cooperative structure. This wider investigation is being led by other organisations, namely in the United States, with a piece of work called Exit to Community, which I thought was a good example of this wider work. So Exit to Community is a group of startup founders, investors and thinkers, and they are reimagining corporate ownership to take into account all of the people who help the business, not just executives and investors, but customers, users and suppliers. Their vision for Exit to Community is outlined in a zine which I'll make sure goes out as a resource alongside this presentation. So I've hopefully covered a lot of ground today. I hope that you've enjoyed the presentation, and I look forward to engaging in some debate and questions and answers. Thank you very much for your time.
very much for the opportunity to speak to the Social Economy Leaders Forum 2020. My name is Matt Pfahlert, and I come from a very small community in Victoria, Australia. I live in a little place called Beechworth, and I've lived in rural Australia my entire life. And what I am passionate about, and the organisation that I co-founded is very, very keen to do, is to drive the renewal of Australia's rural communities so that future generations may thrive. We have a very, very big issue in rural Australia where local students and young people are not learning the mindset, skills and behaviours so that they can actually create their own employment in the future. And what we believe very, very deeply in is the idea that what they call the soft skills or the 21st century skills or the enterprise skills, as we like to call them, should be taught from a very, very early age and treated with the same respect as the way we already treat numeracy and literacy in our education system. And that means that from the very, very first day that a young person becomes a student in primary school, they get to learn about the basics of enterprise capabilities and skill building in the same way they learn to read and write and use numbers. And so the idea is that they learn together and they learn the skills along the way throughout their school career. And so we've traveled the world looking for enterprise skills programs that start to look at young people learning these together in a student-led way for the past 7 years. And we have teamed up with an organisation from Scotland, the Social Enterprise Academy, to start delivering in rural communities social enterprise schools. And it's very, very simple, but it takes a lot of effort behind the scenes because this is very, very new for our school principals and many of our teachers. But the students get it. All we really are doing is we are challenging a group of students to identify a cause that they collectively care about and can agree on. So for example, it might be fresh water in Africa. It might be support for homeless people. But once they've decided on that, then what they do is instead of raising money to donate, they actually start a business to create profits that they then donate to their cause. And that in itself requires a very, very different mindset, skills and behaviours to building out that profit value. And so young people are learning enterprise skills whilst actually contributing to their community from a very, very early age. And so you don't have to be the most academically gifted student to actually engage with your classmates in this kind of learning. And what we find is that it engages the entire range of talents of a young person. And when teachers, when parents, when community members see young people really engage with their learning and learning these kind of enterprise skills, they get excited too. And then we start working with the local businesses, the community leaders, the government leaders to say, hey, if we want these young people to stay and live and flourish in our communities, we need to create an enabling environment for their enterprises. And so what we're really doing is we're connecting young people to the skills they need to see themselves as not only a job seeker in the future, but also as a job creator. So if you have the skills to be able to create your own job, then you can live where you want to live, be connected to the place and your family and the community that you care about. And we know that when you have a big sense of belonging to a place, it is very good for your physical and mental health and your well-being and fulfillment in life. And so we are trying to address this through supporting principals and teachers and students to lead the change that they seek in the world. And the best way that I can really explain what's really happening out there in the communities, in the schools, is to actually show you a short video of what the young people are doing and what their insights are around the learning they have, as well as the teachers and their school principals. We're really, really excited. We've been in 30 schools so far, and we've supported over 4,500 young people through these programs, and we're growing like crazy. And we're really, really excited about getting this kind of learning to every young person right across rural and regional Victoria and Australia, and even in the cities too. So we hope you enjoy the video and you get a sense of what we're trying to achieve. Thank you very much.
Our business is a monthly movie night and we sell fish and chips, popcorn, drinks. We decided to give the students at the Priory who come on camp a walking tour around Beechworth. Our business is called Walkie Porkies. It's where we walk the dogs.
We haven't come up with a business idea yet, but we know that we have to have the product that people will buy.
Our business is a car wash with a cafe and all the profit is going to freshwater in Africa.
We just thought this program was a great program that would provide real life experiences that will take them into the future.
They need to be able to problem solve, they need to develop leadership skills, they need to be able to communicate, they need to public speak. All these will hold them in good stead in the future for employment.
The students have been really engaged in what we've been doing. They already knew about businesses and charities, but they weren't really sure about what a social enterprise was.
A social enterprise is a business that takes one share of the money to make the business bigger and better and donates the other share to a social cause.
The money we are making is going to Middle Island Maroma Project, which help the penguins and make homes for them on the island and feed the dogs so they can scare away the foxes.
The money that we make will be going to a school pretty much built from scratch in Africa for children who are smart but don't have the opportunity to learn.
This is our brand new popcorn machine.
They came to school council and said, could we borrow some money to start our business up? And school council said yes, and they gave them an initial loan of, I think it might have been $500. So they popped that in their bank, and so they've worked with that money and they've actually in the black, which is fantastic.
My name's Corey and I'm the accountant of the business, and this is my spreadsheet. Running a business is not too hard, but it's hard enough.
Instead of telling people what to do, you do this, you do that, I've learnt that you've got to ask the people what they're doing, what they want to do, and then maybe suggest something instead of yelling at them.
You see kids having fun, you see kids being proud of what they're doing, and basically you're seeing kids realise that learning and actually doing things is about building life and helping other people.
The best thing about this program is that the children get to run it, and it's not just the teachers telling us what to do.
I just think it's good because it gives the students an opportunity to start working together.
The social enterprise program and the work that ACRE are doing is helping to perhaps in the future encourage children to stay in the area.
This is very different. I have never done something like this, and it takes a lot of hard work.
It's not like school where I'm just doing maths and languages, those kind of things. I'm actually getting, like, it's more hands-on.
I'm Jooyoung from Wonju. So we have seen the Australian case. So I think we have to think more about and learn from the case. And I think that we could apply that in the Wonju case as well. And the speakers have talked about platform a lot. And I think I should also begin with platform and end with platform in my presentation as well. So I am working at Kusan in Wonju. I think some people would know about it. The social economy community business has been experimented here, and it's working very well in this area. So if you want to relocate to Kusan, what should you do? As you have mentioned, if you want to relocate from Seoul or Incheon to Kusan, then you have to go to the realtor, or you should use the realtor app as well. But just like the other rural area, it goes the same for Kosan. You have to become a resident at Kosan. You have to come inside the community in order to find a house. There will be realtors and will be real estate apps and online apps, but I don't think that those apps could help you find a house in Kosan. The community, our community, serves as a platform for finding your house. Now with the COVID-19 outbreak, there have been many changes in the local area in Kusan as well. There has been many challenge, but also at the same time, the community has come together to overcome the challenges and also offset many difficulties. There have been many experiments that went on. So I'd like to introduce them to you. Recently, we have been going through the COVID-19 outbreak, and there has been a lot of inequality in education. But we also have to think about the post-COVID-19 era. The COVID-19 situation is not ending, and the inequality in education in the local area has to be resolved, and we have given a lot of thought on this. But then there has been also inequality in the rural area as well. What could that be? Well, there are some urban infrastructure for education, and there have been a lot of opportunities for the urban area, but those have been deficient in the rural area. So I think we should look at this from a different lens. In the public education, there are many education values that have been proposed and championed. Competition and achievement and moving on to a better school. Those are the competition-based education values. And those were the things that have been championed in our education field. And the rural areas have been following those values. But I think Wonju has chosen a different path, not choosing competition, but pursuing cooperation and cooperation. And quality of education has been pursued in our local area. So I would like to talk about how we came up with those ideas. Now, our Wonju is situated in Cholla area. The local food and the community will be the best features of Wonju, and we have been undergoing the social economy experiment for about a decade, and we have the village education community, and we have also the youth policy. Now, social economy is not confined to the economic area that seeps into the education and also the settlements for the youth as well. So the social economy is expanding to other areas as well. Well, just like other urban areas, the rural areas also have a lot of concerns. For the rural area, there are concerns of lower population decrease in the rural areas. Low birth rate and desertion of youths are the concerns. So aging and depopulation are the concerns. People are worried that the local area would disappear one day because of the depopulation. So the local areas are trying to attract more youths to their local area. And there are also concerns presented by the youths as well. There are a lack of jobs, and the unemployment rate is increasing. That impacts the inequality and competition and quality of life as well, and that creates alienation. Of course, there are some youths who are trying to overcome this through competing more, but people are also seeking an alternative life, and they are considering migrating and relocating to rural areas. So we are thinking about how we can resolve the concerns of both the local area and the youth. So social economy could come into play, and we have been experimenting with this in Wonju area as well. Well, there are a lot of things that we have gone through, so I don't think we can explain everything. So there are the things that we have been doing for the last 10 years. We have Wonju Community Business Center, the intermediary organization, and the community. They have all come into play. It started with the social economy, but then there were a lot of things that we have done to overcome the inequality in education and the community. So we have put this in perspective, as you can see from this slide, and are going to introduce you from throughout the timeline. So we have Wonju Community Business Center. This is the first intermediary organization for social economy in Korea, and it was established in 2010. So it's been 10 years since it was established. It is in Kosan area, and it has been established to vitalize the local economy through social economy and local circular economy, and a lot of village education community and youth policy foundation were incubated. Based on this center's work, many organizations have been created. A youth policy related organization and foundation were established. And the Community Business Center has led the effort to establish a long-term policy, and in Wonju area, there are a lot of efforts, such as resident participatory budgets establishment. And this is an effort to develop the local area, and the citizens have led this effort themselves. And in Kosan, we have focused on education. So the residents have called out for promoting education rather than focusing on competition, cooperation, and social economy and village-based education were promoted through the community network. And then in 2013, community culture platform C.Art, where I belong to, was established. The youths have led the effort to organize this cooperative. When we first relocated here, when the youth relocate to this area, the community will be supporting them. The C.Art will help the youths to organize those efforts. So we have been receiving a lot of support from the Wonju Community Business Center. A lot of alternative career can be pursued through our programs. And then in 2016, we have first proposed the first youth policy, and that was put forward by the local municipalities. The youth policy that incorporates the characteristics of the rural area was proposed, and the community center has also supported us. And so the Wonjugun also accepted the proposal by C.Art. And there were two concerns from Wonjugun: the community business, the social economy has started from 2010 in this area, but then there needed to be a new and second leap in the social economy. And then there were a lot of youth coming into this area, but at the same time, many youth were also relocating to other areas. So there were some concerns on this. So we have come up with the first youth policy, and the Wonjugun accepted our proposal. So the 23 projects in 4 areas were proposed, and that has started from 2016. And then Kore, Wonjugun's Youth Center, was established in 2017, and Wonjugun has established this center and providing snacks and providing a lot of programs were provided by the cooperatives and the social economy sector. So alternative education was provided, and alternative value was provided through the education. And in the same year, public alternative school, Gosan High School, was established. It was converted from a general high school to a public alternative school. And through the Learning Through Internship program, this program could pursue local-based career program as well. And then the local-based youth job project was established from 2018 to provide new local jobs as well. And then the new Jump Up project was established in 2019. It was to improve the Jump Up project and also to help resolve the problems of the youth relocating to other areas. So another youth program was established and supported. And last but not least, this is the two programs that we are currently implementing. This is the rowing project. Now, the youth programs are implemented at this moment, but then in the social economy and in the local community, they need to find an opportunity to explore alternative jobs, but these have not been present. So from this year, we have started this project for over the 2-year timeline. These youths can have an opportunity to explore alternative jobs, and they can find jobs in the social economy sector. Also, they can create a startup to see what kind of jobs that they can pursue. And this is the platform that can incorporate the idea that I have mentioned before. Now, 4 cooperatives have joined their hands to create the C.Art, where experiments can be done by the youth. And as they stay in the local area, they can pursue these experiments, and this can be expanded as well. So for the past 10 years, we have been experimenting with these ideas. I can't say that we have come up with a big achievement, but I believe that the social economy can serve the youth by helping them prepare for the next 10 years. And also we can help do the experiments in the local area and the rural area. Well, thank you very much. This concludes my presentation.
Hello everyone, my name is David Duke. I am the founder of Street Soccer Scotland, which is a social enterprise based here in Scotland, but also in London. I'm delighted to be here at the Korean Social Economic Leaders Forum 2020. And for the next 10 minutes, I would just like to share some of our journey as we try to create positive change through football. So why street soccer? Well, like most organizations across the world, you know, there's always a reason behind the organization existing. Sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's someone's hobby or someone's skill set. But for me, it was personal. You know, as a child, I grew up in an area which was affected by poverty and child poverty. So I grew up experiencing quite a lot of social disadvantage. I dropped out of school when I was 13 years old, and I had a very difficult journey up until my kind of early adulthood. During that time, as I say, I lived in child poverty. I didn't have the same access to sport and to other opportunities that some children may have faced because of that. And as a young adult, due to the death of my father, I spent some time as homeless in Scotland. And during that time, when you're experiencing these challenges, you know, it affects your mental health, it affects your well-being, and you feel very alone. Thankfully, I was able to move forward in life because of football. You know, I played football a lot as a child. You know, it was my favorite hobby. I always had a ball at my feet, and I was given an opportunity to become part of a football team when I was experiencing homelessness, and that proved to be a key turning point in my own development, because suddenly I had some focus and some structure, and I had purpose. My coach became a role model, and then over the next couple of years, I was able to move on and become qualified as a community practitioner, as well as a football coach. So the reason behind it was my own journey. And in 2009, I was my own kind of job at the time. I was a support worker, supporting people who were homeless. I also was a youth worker working in kind of youth development projects in Glasgow, Scotland. And I also was a football coach. So I decided to bring all my work experience, but also add some of my own life experience to create this project, Street Soccer, to allow people to basically come together. You know, when people are experiencing social disadvantage, such as poor mental health, maybe struggling with addiction, or experiencing homelessness, or generally kind of long-term unemployed, the effect of that is not just it's not just about a roof over your head, or it's not just about not having access to money because you don't work. It's the social things that you miss out. You become very isolated, and that can be very dangerous and very damaging to your health. So Street Soccer was all about, you know, creating football projects where people could come along for free, access sport, you know, access football and play football, which obviously improves your health, you know, your physical fitness and your health and well-being, but also actually just to give people something to belong to, you know, because I think we take being or belonging to something for granted sometimes, where it's you belong to your family, or you belong to your social network, or your work you belong to your work colleagues. So you have all these relationships in your life, and that normally takes you through life and supports you during that time. But for people who maybe don't have that, you know, we wanted to create Street Soccer where we can provide that safe environment. People come together, you know, they access support, they access, you know, additional opportunities that might help them in their journey through life. So that was the basic idea behind it, again, in 2009. And since then, the organisation has expanded, and, you know, it's grown its projects, you know. So in terms of the projects that we deliver, so we have youth programmes. So we work in areas, again, areas that are affected by high levels of poverty, and working with children who may not get access to sport, doing some early intervention work to engage children in regular activity. We have a women's project working with, you know, women of all ages from kind of 16 to 60 years old. You know, again, most women don't have a lot of experience of sport, but we're using sport as a support network and taking people forward. And I'll discuss some of the impact later. But we also have education programs, personal development programs. We work in prisons, supporting people as they come out of prison and trying to stop people reoffending by giving people a bit of hope and a bit of opportunity. And those programs are across communities all over Scotland. You know, Scotland is a small population compared to Korea and some of the other countries here. You know, we have a population of just over 5 million, but, you know, we have our challenges, and we try and, you know, spread our programs across Scotland, and now in London, which I'll touch on later. But for the reason behind it, you know, we believe that everyone, if you think about your own life, there's 3 things that we all need in life, and that's security, relationships, and purpose. You know, imagine not having one of those things in your life. You know, your relationships, you know, if you're isolated and alone, imagine your purpose, you know, you lose your job or you break up with your family. You know, for some people, family is their purpose in life. For some people, it's work and a job. Imagine if you didn't have that, and what then happens to the rest of the 3 things in terms of, because if you don't have purpose, then that then affects your security, and it can also affect the relationships in your life. So for us, we're always trying to say, how can we improve people's chances through increasing the likelihood of positive security, positive relationships, and purpose. So that basically shapes everything we do. We're very much a values-based organisation as well. So all of our projects and, you know, our purpose and our vision is all comes from our values, you know, which is things like, you know, player first. We always put players at the centre of our decision-making, the people we support. We are a family, you know, our organisation has a family culture where everyone supports each other. We never leave anyone behind. For us, it's about creating a level playing field so that everyone has the chance to grow and chance to be all they can be, and so on. But for us, it's all about impact. Impact is key. And in this next slide, you'll see some facts and figures about the work we do. For us personally, the work is all about the social stuff, the human value of impact. For us, that's their key driver. But as you'll see, there's a real kind of social return on investment by creating activities like this, because if the activities that we create and the impact it creates saves money for the economy. So for example, 97% have increased well-being and fitness, a healthy nation, healthy communities, cost less when it comes to health services and access to, acute medicine or accessing additional support. If people are healthy, they're less likely to use some of the health services. You'll see, 37% have said it's had a massive impact on overcoming depression. And we know that mental health is becoming more and more, more and more people are having mental health challenges, and especially in a world post-COVID, mental health must be at the forefront of our thinking in terms of how we support people through these challenging times and the after effect of COVID. In terms of jobs and training, 58% of our players go on or access jobs in education as part of the programme. And for many of our players, many have been out of work for a long time. So being able to take that next step and the confidence they get from being part of street soccer and getting support from other charities and other organisations who we work with, that allows people to grow and move on. And of course, when people are working, they're contributing to the economy. The 78% of family relationships is really important for us, because often when people have crisis in their life, that's when everything falls down, because they don't have that family support to connect with and to access to kind of offer advice or support when they need it. So that's really important. And 85% of players, don't go back into prison and access criminal justice services. Again, a massive cost saving for governments and communities. And the last number, which says £10, independent research showed that for every £1 that we invested into street soccer programs, we created £10 worth of social return on investment. And again, highlighting, money that's not now spent on additional support services or criminal justice services or health services. So that's what it's all about, impact. But in order to gather support, in the next slide, you'll see that, when we talk about brand, when you create an organisation, it's important to create a brand that people trust from a player perspective. So people come to us and they like what we do, and they feel it's cool, they feel it's non-stigma and non-judgmental, but also to attract support from the private sector, so corporate business. We're very lucky to work with big corporate organisations such as Nike, such as Barclays, and a host of others. And we've created a model where we can create CSR, but we can also create brand awareness alongside that by creating powerful stories and powerful messages and powerful activism on change. The next slide as well, in order to achieve that and also to support that, we are very lucky to receive support from a variety of well-known football players and football people. So since 2010, our founding ambassador was former Manchester United manager Sir Alex Ferguson, also Scottish. And he's been an ambassador and a great ambassador since then, a global icon in football. And just recently, 2 weeks ago, we announced the Champions League winner and Premier League winner, Andy Robertson, who is the left back for Liverpool FC, has joined us as our second ambassador. So the impact of that, our players and the people we support, they see, you know, someone like Andy Robertson as a real hero and a real icon. So they are lifted by that. But also for us, you know, having Andy sharing his voice and sharing his platforms across social media to tell our story has a massive impact commercially, as well as telling stories and addressing stigma. So that's what we've done over the last 10 years. We're now in London. We launched in London in March, and we're continuing to grow that. We've already got about 500 players involved in our project in London, and that will continue to grow. And we're also now looking outside of the UK at potential opportunities to create street soccer projects so that we can use and harness the power of football to create positive change and make our society and communities more equal for everyone. So thank you for listening today. I hope everyone's enjoying the Leaders Forum. As I say, I'm delighted to be part of it, and I look forward to being involved in the panel session later on. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
A migrant worker from the Philippines. Because of economic hardship, she works in Singapore. Most of her salary is remitted back home to support her family. And after her contract is completed, she goes back to her home. Her kids have dropped out of school. Her husband is nowhere to be found. No money is saved. What happened to the money? This is a typical migrant worker story. A migrant worker supports her family by sending cash, and cash is great. It can be used to buy food, medicine, and pay bills, but cash can also be used on gambling, drugs, and alcohol. In these cases, their hard work is wasted. Hi, I'm Jonathan Chua, CEO of BeamAndGo, and that's the problem that we solve. BeamAndGo is a payment and digital marketplace that empowers migrant workers by giving them control over how their remittances are spent by their families back home. We solve the problem of remittance leakage and spending abuse. We also aspire to provide a positive social impact for our customers, merchants, and partners, while contributing to 2 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for 2030. Goal number 1 being eradicating poverty, and goal number 8, providing for decent work and economic growth. Our customers are overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs. These are migrant workers who originate from the Philippines but now live and work in countries like Singapore, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. We have over 260,000 registered users, and women are the main providers of 91% of the families that use BeamAndGo. Last year, over $33 billion was remitted into the Philippines. It accounted for 10% of the country's GDP and is the source for 75% of private consumption in the Philippines. Now, here's an example of how BeamAndGo works. A domestic helper in Singapore tells us she wants to send 5,000 pesos, about $100 US, to her husband in Manila, but he can only use it to buy groceries. We generate a code with a value, 5,000 pesos, and a purpose, groceries, and send the code to the husband. The husband goes to the supermarket, picks up eggs, rice, milk, goes to the cashier, presents the code, and the code pays for the groceries. No cash is ever exchanged. Over 8,000 locations, products, and services in the Philippines are in our marketplace. This includes supermarkets, pharmacies, petrol stations, convenience stores, and more. By the end of 2021, we'll grow to 21,000 and have added healthcare, tuition loans, and online continuing education courses. Because our customers are unbanked, we have payment partners all over the world. Our system is integrated with credit cards, remittance centers, banks, digital wallets, payment kiosks, cash pickup service, and coming soon, crypto. We are also developing a stored value facility in the form of a digital wallet, which we will launch in Singapore by the end of the year. BeamAndGo is a revenue-generating company with a business model that has a low financial impact on migrant workers. We earn from merchant discounts and charge a small convenience fee per transaction. In 2019, our average basket size was $64 US. Now, on a personal level, my dream is to level the playing field for migrant workers by giving them the tools to take care of their families. I want to see their hard work and sacrifice result in an improved life for them and their families, and provide better opportunities for future generations. Along with my partner and fellow co-founder, Albert Go, I define the company's business strategy, and I also oversee the overall business operations and engineering team. Albert has worked as an overseas Filipino in Singapore for over 4 years. He understands the difficulties of being away from family and friends. During one of our many dinners we shared, he told me that the stress of being away from the Philippines had a negative effect on his health and his relationships with his family and friends. Changing those circumstances is a big motivating factor for being a part of BeamAndGo. Albert manages the company's Philippines operations and oversees the marketing, merchant, sales channels, and customer service team. In total, we have 18 full-time employees in Singapore, Manila, Cebu, and Davao. Every one of us are committed and dedicated to uplifting the lives of migrant workers. Because for a migrant worker, every year is tough. Isolation, hard work, hazardous work conditions is the norm. But with the onset of COVID-19, their lives have become even tougher. In just 4 months, 340,000 overseas Filipinos lost their jobs. Some forecasters project that 1 million OFWs will be retrenched by the end of 2021. Many are the sole providers for their family and risk slipping back into poverty. With COVID-19 destroying OFW families, we couldn't just sit still and do nothing. We adjusted our product offerings and leveraged our technology to address the customer concerns born from the pandemic. We launched a service to deliver rice and fresh goods, ensuring that families had access to food. This service now accounts for 50% of our business. Project Kabayanihan, our rice donation campaign launched in April 2020, has raised over 4 metric tons of rice, feeding over 800 OFW families. And in May, we started working with the Grameen Foundation and JP Morgan to disperse financial aid as a form of COVID-19 relief to distressed families. But instead of cash, the aid is in the form of credit, which is used on the BeamAndGo platform. By leveraging our platform, the organizers of the relief and CSR program are ensured that the funds will be used for essential needs and not be misused and abused. For phase 1, the financial aid will be dispersed to 3,500 families in Manila and Cebu. We are also in the process of offering online education courses to prepare OFWs in the case they lose their jobs. While COVID-19 has altered our scheduled initiatives and pushed back our original development timelines, the pandemic has strengthened our resolve to provide services that will help Filipinos. In addition, the team, the partnerships, and the collaborations built during this time will enable us to build a better company in the future. Over the last few years, we've been fortunate to receive favorable press in Singapore, Hong Kong, and the Philippines. Last year, we were in the top 2 at the Hong Kong Elevator Pitch Contest in the FinTech category. And earlier this year, we were at one of the top 10 finalists at the She1K Shark Tank. Over the next 18 months, we are working on a few initiatives to help more OFWs and their families. As mentioned earlier, we are launching a stored value facility in the form of a digital wallet in Singapore by the end of the year. This will make our customers have an easier way to pay, to make payments, and control their finances. After Singapore, we'll launch a similar wallet in Hong Kong and Taiwan. We're adding another 13,000 locations, products, and services to our marketplace. Everything a migrant worker needs for their family will be available. And we will continue to work with NGOs like Grameen Foundation to provide more needed aid to distressed families in the Philippines. And I'll tell you why it's important. When we get this right, for the first time in her life, an OFW will have financial control, financial literacy, and financial savings. Her children will be educated. And the economic stability means less time apart. And for the Philippines, that result is lower unemployment, a skilled workforce, and a thriving economy. And that's a benefit to over 110 million people. I want to thank you for inviting me to participate in this forum. If you want to continue the conversation, my contact information is on the screen. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. I am Kim Hae-won, professor at the Korea National University of Education. Now, I am the moderator for session 2. So as I listened to the presentations, I got the impression that this is an all-round package, the comprehensive package. A lot of themes and concepts have been introduced. Each presenter has delivered their presentation in a very short time span, 10 minutes. And I have looked at the comments chat window, and I think that there are a lot of people who say that they have received a lot of insights. Now we have 3 panelists added on top of the speakers. So we're going to listen to the 3 panelists' ideas first, and then following the order of the agenda on the brochure, we're going to ask the overseas participants first, and then we're going to listen to their answers in that order. Now, first, I would like to introduce Mr. Hyunkyung from the Korea Labor Institute, and he's a research fellow, and he is in the U.S. at this moment, so I think he's from overseas. So please, I would like to give you 5 minutes for each panelist. So please go ahead,
들리시나요?
Mr.
네.
Hyunkyung.
예, 그럼 시작하겠습니다.
Can you hear me? Yes.
한국노동연구원 김현종입니다.
Okay, so I'll begin.
좋은 발표 감사드립니다.
So, hello, I'm joining from online. So, I'm from the Korea Labor Institute. I would like to thank you for your great presentations. You have introduced some new ideas to me, so it has been very helpful to me. I'd like to ask Mr. Simon Borkin and Ms. Jooyoung, and my questions are directed to these 2 speakers. So, I think we have some common understanding with Jooyoung. I think platform is very important. There are a lot of investments in the platform industries who have to become the first runner in order to survive in the market. So I think compared to the large enterprises, the social economy is vulnerable and weak in this factor. So the community share based community share offer would be very important and meaningful as introduced by Mr. Simon Borkin. But I don't know if we can compete against the large enterprises and large capital with community share only. I think we need something more than that. At the grassroots level, we need some more support and investment. However, I think we need more aggressive support from the government as well. So the community that supports the social economy would be one factor, but then we need another support from the government. For example, there should be more active support. The social economy platform should be provided. A platform that only the social economy can participate should be supported by the government. So from your point of views, what kind of roles can the government play in this respect? I would like to ask both Mr. Simon Borkin and Mr. Jooyoung as well, Ms. Jooyoung. And then there's another question on the role of the social economy. In the COVID-19 era, the platform workers are facing more challenging situations. The work itself has decreased, for example, for the drivers and for the workers at home. So what kind of special efforts should be provided? Are there any best practices where special efforts are provided in the social economy to help these people resolve the problem? If you have any cases that overcome these issues, please let us know. Why social economy platform is necessary would be resolved by those best practices or best cases. So in summary, I would like I would like to ask you about the government's role, and then also whether there are any social economy best practices that overcome the COVID-19 situations. Thank you very much.
Okay, the second panelist is Min Dong-se from. As was introduced, my name is Min Dong-se from the social co-op Dounuri. So actually, I thought I was going to go last because my name is last on the program, but I ended up being the second panelist. But anyway, I heard the presentations and I was very interested. I am working in a Dounuri, which is the name of a social cooperative. So basically, Dounuri deals with the entire life cycle of a person and provides different services throughout the entire life cycle. So we have more than 900 workers working in our cooperative, and so we have been providing care services for newborn babies, to children, and to also the elderly. So yes, I am mentioning this because although the presentations were very interesting, there is a limit to what I can actually say. But nonetheless, I found the presentations very interesting. The part about the community shares was a pleasant shock. I found it really interesting. So a lot of social economy organizations are now dealing with the challenge of building their assets. And the other presentations were also very interesting, and they gave me a lot of food for thought. And so the specific realities that you provided, you elaborated on, was very interesting. Thank you very much to all the presenters. So, like I said, we provide a platform. We provide care services through a platform, so I would just like to share with you our experience. So regarding the emergence of platform workers, it seems that many people take it for granted. So I think we need to think about whether it is something that we should take for granted or not. So providing labor and consumption through these platform or apps is positive in certain ways, but this is only convenience in terms of capitalists or maybe users, but it's not convenient from the perspective of workers. So if you look at Uber Taxi and the workers who work there, and so it seems that the workers are deprived of their rights in order to provide more convenience for the users. The workers in the gig economy are receiving less wages, and their jobs are becoming more insecure. And so can we say that these digital platforms are really beneficial from the perspective of workers? The second point I'd like to make is that can cooperatives become an alternative under these circumstances? Ms. Jooyoung didn't have time to finish her presentation, although I thought it was rather interesting. But nonetheless, yes, your presentation was very insightful and interesting. You talked about how the social economy can indeed provide solutions and alternatives for the difficulties that workers face in the platform. But can that actually be beneficial for all forms of workers on this digital platform? And do those social economy solutions provide actual fundamental solutions to these challenges that the workers face? So when it comes to the ICT and the artists and freelancers and domestic workers, maybe these types of workers can actually benefit from the social economy. But if you think about the caregiving workers, I am a little bit doubtful. So I have a bit of a different perspective. When it comes to caregivers, people who provide direct services to other people have to be recognized as workers under law, and they also have to have a worker status, and they have to be directly employed. So right now, it seems that the caregivers are also benefiting from the gig economy, but that's not going to be the case in the long term. If you think about it, a service or the service's quality, according to the service chain theory, good treatment of the workers lead to enhanced services. This is the essence of the theory. And so direct employment and better treatment of the workers will lead to better quality services. So maybe some people say that competition will also enhance the quality of services, but this only can take place if there is high-level social consensus. But I'm not sure if that's really the case in Korean society. We don't have enough institutions that back up the care services industry, and we don't have that high-level social consensus about the value of caregiving either. So, we believe that enhancing the status of workers and the treatment of workers working in the caregiving industry is essential for enhancing the quality of those services. And so once again, in the face of COVID, we are reminded once again of the importance of face-to-face caregiving services and the value of those services. And so I just wanted to point out that when it comes to caregiving workers, it's different from other kind of workers under this kind of digitalized platform. So perhaps nowadays people are just opting for a more convenient and easy road of using a digitalized platform to have access to caregiving services, even if direct employment and direct face-to-face contact is a difficult road that we need to take. Perhaps it's something that we really have to promote. So let's perhaps listen to what Dr. Cho has to say first and her response to the questions, and then we'll move on from there. So first of all, Dr. Kil had talked about how whether social enterprises can compete against the larger corporations, and so in that sense, the community shares is quite interesting. I also agree, but we have to think about the Korean context. I think the laws and regulations about community shares is non-existent in Korea at the moment. So in order for us to adopt the community shares in Korea, we will have to change the laws first. And bulk purchasing of shares is also difficult in Korea. So I think, realistically speaking, there might be some social purpose enterprises that might be related to community shares. For now, I think perhaps local residents issuing community shares on a very small scale might be possible, but for now, I think we have a long way to go. But nonetheless, I do agree that it's a good idea and we do need it. And the reason I'm interested in it is because the governance of the digital platform cooperative have to be changed to be worker-oriented, and then the issuing of financing comes up. If you look at many other countries, like US, well, we had the case of street soccer, but Barclays Bank had actually invested and sponsored street soccer. You have Robin Hood, and also you had large corporations who were sponsoring or investing in the digital platform or the cooperatives. And so in Korea, we don't have that kind of financing. Large corporations are not willing to invest in these kind of areas. And so even if we try to issue community shares, I'm not sure whether we'll be able to really do would be able to accomplish that in real life. Now, to respond to what Mr. Min Dong-se has said, well, yes, due to time constraints, I'll just go on to what Mr. Min had said. I was not able to explain everything in my presentation. So, our alternative, once again, is to have 100% direct employment, even for the co-ops, and to provide better treatment for the workers, even though it may be a platform. So, 도우누리, your cooperative in itself is becoming like a platform so that many people are able to use it. And we also want to transform the idea of the platform. It's sort of like a franchise. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Now I'd like to invite the third panelist, Ms. Lawrence Kwok, the General Secretary of GSEF. Good afternoon. I'm General Secretary of Global Society Economic Forum. I'm Hyunkyung or Lawrence Kwok. Well, as I've participated in the second session, I've been reflecting on myself a lot. Now we are living in the inequality society. However, we have to move on to the inclusive society. The 6 presentations have been very exciting and a very great ideas have been presented. But then, in order to do the transition, I think there needs to be a role of the social economy. In the first session, the changing the institution and the system and leading the world in the future were mentioned. But then the social economy's experiments in the real world today is very working in silo. So I think I will have to reflect on myself from the outset. Well, there was the Global Inequality Report, which was published a few years ago. I have read it, and it was very interesting. A lot of inequality structures and the causes were presented, and a lot of quantitative data were presented, and there were 3 ideas. First, we need to have a credible statistics. So now we are seeing a growing inequality, but we have to know how it is accelerating, and we have to see the quantitative data, the quantitative statistics, in order to find the causes and the solutions. And second, the government level laws and regulations and institutional measures have to be in place, such as the tax system should be reformed in order to distribute wealth better than we do now. So I think that's the second part. And the third part that is necessary is the following. Now we have responses against the global inequality, and that would be the global strategy. I think that this is where the social economy can play a role. For each country, we are seeing different levels of speed and the degree of inequality growing and changing. Maybe there are language barriers. We are more exposed to the US and UK cases. I see that the US is suffering from the worst inequality acceleration speed. So I think that the structural issues are at hand. We have to change the institutional structure, but then I wonder whether the social economy can do that. So I have given you my thought on the overall idea, but then now the question, now the Australia case and the Australian case by Mr. Pfahlert was very interesting. I want to know how in Australia is providing the alternative education. How can the alternative education be incorporated in the education system? Not only the youth, but the parents are also participating in that movement. I want to know how that could be made possible. And then second question to C.Art. I think this is a very interesting case which has been undergoing for about 10 years. The elderly in Korea are very marginalized in the rural area, and they are mostly depicted as the victims of the inequality. I want to know how the elderlies are responding to your movement and how they are participating in your job. And then to Mr. Chua from BeamAndGo, the works that you are doing are done in Singapore. The social enterprises and social economy sector, how are you cooperating with them? And also, you are expanding your work to Hong Kong as well. I would like to know how you are cooperating and building alliance with the social economy sector in Hong Kong as well. Well, thank you very much.
So we have heard from the three designated panelists. So we have lots of questions coming on YouTube, but I won't be able to read every single one of them. But there's just one question that I thought was very interesting that I'm going to share with you. So this is a question for Mr. Duke and also for Mr. Pfahlert. So you have to, meet your clients face to face, right? But you probably have lots of difficulties because of the COVID-19. So how are you overcoming these different challenges because of the lockdown and the COVID-19? And what kind of alternatives or solutions have you come up with? And so, yes, I'm going to now ask the speakers to respond to the different interventions. We'll go in the order of the presentation. So first, I'll give the mic to Mr. Borkin.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Thank you again for inviting me to take part in this session. You may be aware that we had a few technical problems, so apologies if I didn't capture all the comments and questions. Please feel free to post them as I go, so I make sure that I cover. The aspects that I did pick up was a recognition, reflecting on the case within the United Kingdom. My presentation obviously picked up on the success of the community shares model as a way for cooperatives in the community sector to raise what we would call patient and aligned finance, risk capital that all businesses need to start and grow. My work with Cooperatives UK, the trade body in the United Kingdom, along with Nestle, was seeing whether this type of share capital could be repurposed into the technology sector, specifically this recognition that big tech was becoming overly dominant and exploitative within various markets, and that was growing as the platform economy grew. I think the question recognised that actually civic investment or community shares alone isn't going to overcome the funding issues that co-ops that want to start and grow within the technology sector are going to need. And I think it's fair to say that some form of other intervention is needed. My research was focusing on the aspect of institutional funding that would come in, that would work and behave like venture capital funding that has, I suppose, supported technology businesses in conventional sectors. But you would get essentially social institutional funding, which had different expectations around risk and return that was more compatible with the co-op sector, where fundamentally the ability for those investors to make large capital gains would be eliminated. And I think it's absolutely right that there will probably need to be some form of government intervention to crowd in that type of investment, because it is, it's naturally not as commercially attractive to typical investors, because it in itself is going to be a much longer term investment. Venture capital, has historically wanted to see payback within 5 to 10 years, and I think investment in cooperatives in this sector, you're looking more at 10 to 20 years, and actually, the level of return is going to be dramatically lower. That's not to say that actually investments in emerging platform co-ops couldn't be a financially, a fairly secure investment, because co-ops have shown themselves to be more resilient. And I think, the idea is that the government, what we would like to see in the UK, and I suppose elsewhere, is governments trying to crowd in more long-term patient investment. The likes of pension funds and other much longer term investors. It's about trying to crowd those in. And ultimately, I think, like anything, it's going to require a few pioneers, a few leaders. The work we've done in the United Kingdom, we've been working with Open Society Foundation, which is a large philanthropic international organisation who've been investing on this basis.
Because we
Just
are
trying
running
to
out of time,
find
could you run that, please?
enlightened social investors that can bring investment to the sector. Yeah, and I think the final point was around the response to COVID and how platform co-ops could mobilise in that space. I think ultimately, I think COVID has exacerbated the reliance that we have on technology, and so people are questioning how it's owned and run. I think I think there's greater consumer awareness around putting technology that we now rely on for our day-to-day lives to have more control. So I think, if anything, the response to COVID should hopefully build a kind of level of awareness to people about questioning how technology is owned and run, and hopefully build a kind of consumer base that would likely want to invest. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We are really running out of time, unfortunately, so I'll only be able to give you about 4 minutes to the speakers to respond. Now I'm going to ask Mr. Matt Pfahlert from ACA Australia to respond to some of the questions that were raised.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. A couple of the questions related to how communities respond to young people learning this kind of education, and how does the education system respond to this kind of education. That it'd be safe to say that our education system hasn't quite embraced enterprise learning as yet. And one of the things that we've been doing over the last 5 years is finding those proof points with those educators and school principals that are more progressively thinking, and proving and independently evaluating the results that we're getting. And so off the back of that, we've been able to get the buy-in and the interest of some of our curriculum assessment authorities who advise government on what should be in the curriculum for our students. And so we're at a stage now where we've been doing this for 5 years, and the world is changing and people are starting to catch up. So many more educators are now realising that young people need to learn enterprise capabilities if they're going to be successful either in the workforce or as importantly, I think, in the future, which is creating their own employment. And so we talk about the skills that young people are learning in communities is all about them having the option to be a job seeker or a job creator. And we do that through young people starting social enterprises. And when they do that, and when it engages the entire range of talents of a young person, what happens is people take notice. When kids are very excited and engaged about their learning, not only do their teachers take notice, but their parents and their friends and their neighbours take notice. So we're seeing that the young people are leading the change that we seek in adults as well. So then we're able to do training and learning programs with adults to say, hey, as the next generation of young people come through to be enterprising, you need to create that enabling environment. And so it really brings an invitation to community members to try new things, to back in new ideas and take a punt on new projects. And in doing so, creating a new culture and new value in particularly rural communities. So it's going to be a slow burn for our education system, but I think teachers, educators and principals are starting to recognise that these skills are as important as numeracy and literacy in the future.
Okay, now I'm going to give the mic to Mr. David Duke from Scotland. So can you respond to some of the questions that were raised?
Yes, thank you. So the question I think I was asked was, as an organisation that does a lot of face-to-face contact, how did we cope with the COVID situation? Now, our organisation is more than football. It's about community and connection. So when COVID came upon us, first of all, from a leadership perspective, I had to make sure that my team were going to be okay, because the team are the ones who do the work on the ground. And so it was important for me to recognise the impact COVID had, not only on the people we support, but also the team who provides the support. And then as a team, we identified, we looked at our values and why we exist. And why we exist is to provide some safety, to make sure players are healthy and also secure. So those three elements, safety, healthy and secure, was our key priority through the whole kind of lockdown process. Now, in full lockdown, we couldn't do kind of face-to-face contact because it wasn't allowed. So we quickly went virtual with a lot of our sessions and programs, which presented another challenge because for a lot of our players, they maybe don't have access to Wi-Fi or data or smartphones to actually use technology. So we invested in smartphones and data packages, which we then distributed out to our players so we could connect with them virtually. We also connected with them through telephone calls, one-to-one, kind of socially distant kind of support if someone was in real crisis, and then we provided a range of services which players needed during that time, largely because services or support networks which they would normally access, they couldn't because of many local authorities, government-run institutions all shut down. So we had to step up. So that meant that we were providing meals and food parcels across the communities. We created an emergency transport service where if people had to go and get medication or go to hospital, we could provide that emergency transport. We looked at what else we could do. So we actually, the money that we would have spent in delivering some of our projects during that period, we set up a hardship fund where individuals who needed access to cash, we could access additional funds just to see them pass with no questions asked. It was all about making sure we kept our players safe and healthy. And as we transition out of the full kind of lockdown with less restrictions, we had a kind of slow kind of build up from kind of non-contact fitness sessions, which just basically got people on the same football field, albeit socially distant, but just together. And then as things started to relax, we brought in contact football, but operating our own kind of design track and trace system through creating bubbles within the players so they could, via WhatsApp, they could let people know if they were feeling unwell or had symptoms, and we could then monitor that. We had the support of Scottish Government for that, and they were very helpful with all the latest recommendations. So for us, it was just all about keeping our players safe, healthy and secure.
Thank you very much. So yeah, I thought it was just about football, but the street soccer was really about social relationships and networking. So it doesn't necessarily have to be about football, right? So I think some other kind of mediation can be used to promote social networking. So it was very inspiring for me. Thank you very much. Now, the last presenter from overseas.
Mr. Jonathan Chua, could you give your thoughts?
Yep. Okay, great. So maybe I could start my answer by talking about our customers. So our customers are, in essence, the forgotten people, right? So they're migrant workers. And I always say this, if you're really poor, the government usually has programs to help you. If you are middle class and above, you can kind of take care of yourself. But these people make money, they have jobs, but they're kind of forgotten. There's nothing, they're treated as second-class citizens in the countries that they're at. They don't have a lot of ways to take care of their family. So what we're doing here at BeamAndGo is we're creating a platform. And the platform is with the understanding that the sacrifices and the hard work that a migrant worker does is temporary. And it's only used to kind of support their family and hopefully uplift their future generations. So our platform is really to prepare them for the future, for what we call their second life. When they leave, let's say Singapore, Hong Kong, and go back to their family in the Philippines. And so the whole idea of Beam and Go is once they're back, they have financial control, they're financially included, and they also have financial literacy. And that kind of trickles down from not only for them, but for their family, for their kids, for their spouse, or even for their parents. And so all of a sudden you have a framework and you have a result where people are uplifted as opposed to now. And the sacrifices are really dire, right? One of the things is I have a daughter, and when I go on a business trip for 2 or 3 days, I miss her so much, and it drives me crazy. Imagine if you're a migrant worker, they're gone for a minimum 2 years. And if they're not, and if they have to continually work to make money for their family, we've heard stories of 10, 15 years. They never even see their kids grow up. So what our platform is doing is to kind of really shorten that time that they're away and then give them the tools so that they can uplift their family. And it's not just us, like it's a team effort. Like we need to work with other companies. Like we work with the Grameen Foundation, we work with UNICEF, we work with UN, and we all work together. And that's just only a few of the bigger names, but we also work with digital banks, we work with remittance centers, we work with merchants on the ground, local government units, so that we could provide this kind of layer of tools or this framework. So when the migrant worker goes back, they have it for them. It's all there for them.
Yeah.
So that's what we do here at Beam and Go. And I hope I didn't hear all the questions, but I hope that gave you guys a little bit more insight on what we do.
So I gave you just 3 minutes because you were the last from the overseas. And now I would like to give you just 2 minutes for Mr. Kim Jooyoung. Well, in our local area, we have been doing a lot of social economy activities for youth, but you have asked a question about the elderly. In Wonju, there are community business, and those are for local food and for the agriculture, and those are the projects for the elderly. And we actually began from those projects, and it takes up quite a portion. So the local food enterprise, social enterprises are taking up quite a portion in our project. And I'm also one of those who have relocated from Seoul to Wonju, and the elderly in Wonju have been very accommodating and welcoming me. And I was wondering, why are they welcoming us so much without giving us any hard times? But when you think about it, I think that when we did the community business center and when the social economy activists came to the local areas, they have helped the local community and made improvement in the local community and helped the elderly. So I think that's the reason why they welcomed us a lot. Of course, they don't give us house or land to us, but then they are very accommodating to the experiments done by the youth. So I think this could be very intergenerational efforts, and I think we have to move on and do more in the intergenerational efforts as well. Well, thank you very much. Well, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules today. And I've got 2 impressions. There are 2 key takeaways. First, now we have met for the first time, but I hope that we could meet together again many times to make exchanges. And also, I thought that we are doing a comprehensive package here because we talked about too many things. And on YouTube, we've got a variety of questions, and many people were asking more questions through this discussion and the forum. So I think that is very meaningful. I don't think the solution lies in the answers. I think the solution lies in the questions. So thank you very much.